Oh, welcome everybody. Give me a second. Hang on. I'm in a spot of bother, gang. So Neil, take over.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking to Paul Sayer from Prostate today. And I've just been reading some really interesting and quite shocking statistics on prostate cancer. So I'm looking forward to deep diving into it a little bit today, because what I'd heard about it, and it's only kind of lay knowledge, is that people don't tend to die from it. They tend to die with it, which is okay, I suppose, but I'm sure there's always improvements that can be made. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about that and hearing what's being done in this field today. I had a great weekend as well, raised money for the Grace Deer Trust, which we must get Graham Deer on here. He's an incredible man, lives locally to me. And he tragically lost his daughter to suicide, Grace Deer, a few years back. But he's turned the situation. In his own words, I could either crawl into a corner and curl up, or I could do something about it. And he's providing mental health awareness and care for the Kingston and Elmbridge boroughs, just raising money, very focused, very locally. He doesn't want the charity to get any bigger. He's just doing it right where he stands and where it's needed, which in this case is around here. And I did an amazing comedy night last night. And I had to go up to the guy that I'm going to talk about and get his number, because this chap gets on stage, and I've got to set it up this way because it'll spoil the payoff if I don't. But let's just say a mature Asian gentleman, and he's sitting there in his baseball cap, and he's brought family and friends with him, and it's a lovely friendly room anyway. And he got on stage and did this hilarious 10 minutes. I mean, really funny. I was curious when he got on stage. About a minute in, I thought, oh my God, this is really super clever. And then at the end of it, he says, I'm just doing this for a good reason. He says, because I want to bring happiness and joy to people. Then he says to the audience, are you enjoying yourselves? And we all went, yeah, because we were. And he said, I want to prove also it's never too late to follow a dream. He said, because I turn 80 this October. And he was absolutely fantastic. His name is Palan. And I thought that is an epitome of men's mental health. And I thought we've got to get him on the show sometime. So I was going to tell you all this later, but you said Phil. So I Phil. Good afternoon. Welcome to Men's Health Radio.
I'm sorry about that. As you can see, I'm trying to do everything with one hand. One thing I can't stand about social media are pity parties. I absolutely loathe when people post pictures of them looking absolutely awful. Why would you? It's the dog. Why would you do that? So, yeah. So trying to do everything with just my right hand, and I am left-handed, so I have absolutely no dominance in this hand at all, which is also damaged. So so it takes me like forever. So my apologies. I think Neil's going to be doing much of the heavy lifting for the next few months, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm going to take
I don't mind.
Quite a back seat, because I'm just not up to it. Anywho, let's bring on our thank you, everybody. Should we go through some of the messages? Happy Monday.
Yes, stick them on the screen. As Russell likes to say, we read them out because not everyone has visuals. People listening on Deluxe can only hear us, not see us. So we do read them out in case you're watching and thinking, well, we can read. Yes, we know you can, but people that are just listening can't. So whack some on the screen. Let's go through some of the dedications.
I will do that as we go along, my young, enthusiastic friend. There we go.
Robert Van Buren, I knew you'd be here.
All right, so that there we go. Let me get Paul Andrews, happy Monday.
Hey, Paul.
Barry Allen, happy Monday. Dave Sweet, yeah, up in Fife. And then what have we got here? Only last night.
Paul Andrews says I was talking to.
Yeah, there we are. Sorry, go on. No.
Paul Andrews says I was talking to a friend who is a consultant urologist about prostate screening only last night. There you go. A bit of Men's Health Radio synchronicity. But over to you, Russ.
Over to me.
Right,
okie dokie. Let's bring on. Thank you. Let's put on Paul Sayer.
Hi,
Paul. Hello. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. You?
Hey, Paul.
We're just Jim Dandy. Okay, let's Tell us about yourself and all about what's going on.
I run a charity called Prostate. We come at prostate cancer from a slightly different angle to most of the other cancer charities out there, insofar as we're about over-treatment of prostate cancer, which is a major issue right now. So how I came to that is I myself had prostate cancer back in 2018 and went through the usual route of screenings, biopsies and diagnosis, which turned out to be a sizable tumour. And then I was offered two routes by the local hospital. One was surgery to remove the prostate, the other was radiotherapy 5 days a week for 5 weeks to blast the hell out of it.
Jeez.
So I'd done a little bit of research prior to that and knew there were newer, more focal treatments that targeted the cancer rather than the whole organ. Asked about these, both I was told they were flaky, only in trial, weren't suited to my cancer. Fortunately, I was obstinate enough to go past that. I did some research and I found a professor at Imperial College Hospital in London who was doing focal therapy, as it's called, on the NHS. Now, focal therapy...
Sorry, it's not the greatest of microphones you're using, so it's slightly echoey. What do you call it? What therapy?
It's focal therapy.
Focal?
Focal.
With an F?
As in focused.
Okay.
Right, let me explain. What happens is, can you hear me now?
It's not great, but carry on. It's not very clear, but carry on.
It's normally okay. So focused therapy is, instead of taking the prostate out...
It's a shame because this is so important.
I wonder if there's anything we can do with it seems the internet connection's jumping in and out, and it seems too good to miss this. Is there anything we can do as a little cheeky reboot or something?
I don't know. The internet's not great today, which is actually because we're on fibre.
It's good where I am. It's gigabit internet here, so it should be okay. Is that any better? I've come closer.
That's okay. Carry on.
Okay.
Carry on.
Right. So, focused therapy as an alternative for prostate cancer. The idea is that instead of taking the organ out or blasting it with radiotherapy, they use either ultrasound to literally peck away at the tumour itself, leaving the prostate intact, or cryotherapy using thin needles to freeze the actual tumour. So all it does, it destroys the cancerous cells within the prostate, leaving everything else working, all your functionality normal. If you have surgery or radiotherapy, that will take away your urinary function normally, you'll be incontinent to a degree, and sexual function will be damaged by up to 80% in most cases. So it's not the preferred route for most men.
Well, I got to say that that's not exactly what I've been told by the chief urologist at Guy's Hospital.
Okay.
He wouldn't agree with those figures at all.
Really?
No, he wouldn't.
Well, that's the
he absolutely wouldn't. He said there's a chance that certain things will happen, but it's not as bad.
The cases I with most of the guys who've been through surgery or radiotherapy, they will have.
I'm really struggling to hear you. I don't know what.
It's a shame.
So if I'm getting the gist of this, because I'm struggling as well. There's a new therapy. I still didn't catch the name of it, but it's a lot less invasive. Because I mean, nobody would want to be incontinent afterwards, would they? I mean, I can't imagine any man or woman who would want that. But it can be done cryogenically. And what was the first thing you said? Something about pecking away. What was that again?
Yeah, what that is, it's using highly targeted ultrasound. So they insert a probe into your rear end, fire beams of ultrasound at the tumour, and it forms a point of heat about the size of a grain of rice. And that pecks away literally at the tumour, leaving everything around it intact. So
that is fascinating.
Yeah, and having been there myself, I can speak from experience that it doesn't affect functionality in any way.
Is this new, or has it just been trying to get to the market for ages?
It's been 10 years. It's been out there for 10 years. There's recent white papers showing 8, 9 and 10 year efficacy of this. It's an NHS tariff procedure. It's NICE approved, but it's only available in a minimal number of hospitals in the country.
Why is that?
Yeah, why?
The NHS being a slow tanker that takes a long time to turn, There was a whole lot of investment that went into robotic surgery prior to COVID. There's been a lot of money spent on updating radiotherapy suites. So they are the available tools around the country generally. The focal therapy is something that's trying to be pushed out. I mean, we're talking about a treatment here that's got professors who are trying hard to get this out into the wider NHS. So we formed this charity to enable that to happen effectively. So we're driving the NHS to expand availability of this treatment.
Where does it, forgive me, you're still cutting out quite a lot. So if you said this already, forgive me. But where does it compare comparatively to the costs of the so-called traditional treatment?
It's far less cost. The actual cost of the equipment to install, you can put a whole focal suite in for about £500,000, which you compare that to a robotic surgery machine or a radiotherapy suite. It's minuscule. And in NHS terms, £500,000 isn't a big spend. But also, it's not just the initial cost, it's the ongoing costs. It's a day-stay procedure. You're not in hospital for 5 days, for 5 weeks, or overnight for surgery with recovery times. I was in for 1 day in the theatre for 2 hours, came out that night with the catheter fitted. The next day I was sitting at my desk working. The catheter came out 7 days later. I got on with my life. It was that minimal. So I've got none of the costs that the NHS.
So literally 1 day overnight.
1 day. It's a day-stay procedure. During COVID,
isn't it ridiculous? Isn't it ridiculous though?
That
a charity has to do this, and I've said this so many times on the show over the years that it's ludicrous that a charity has to do this.
It is. We wish we didn't have to, but
it seems that why wouldn't anyone want that option? Yeah. It's better for the customer, as it were, if you want to put it in those terms. It's a lot cheaper to the organisation. Less invasive. Why does a charity need to get together with something that would seem to be blatantly obvious?
It baffles the life out of me. There's fortunately an all-party parliamentary group at the moment that's been set up for minimally invasive treatments for cancer. And it covers all cancers, but prostate cancer is one of those that can benefit most. We have the most to gain from it. We're effectively the lead charity on there. We've given evidence and contributed to that all-party group, which should be coming out later this month or in June. And that also states very clearly as a headline, this is not something that charities should be leading. This is something the NHS should be leading.
Yeah, precisely so. The charities shouldn't be having to do that because, with respect, you're enthusiastic amateurs, and it should be the NHS should be leading this damn thing. I mean, it's very close to my heart. It killed my father. I watched him die from this. So believe me, this is not some sort of academic, theoretical conversation. I have issues myself, and etc. Now, you get stuff like this, which goes to the heart of men's radio station. This is from Sen Munro. Talking prostate issues, I'm all ears. I've been peeing blood for 2 months. Well, what the hell are you doing about it? Sen, come on, man. Had an MRI last Monday. They can't seem to find anything wrong. Well, they must be able to find something wrong. And then coming in from America. Hang on a minute. Hang on, Paul, hang on, please. And then coming in from America, Sen Munro, don't delay asking for additional testing and for retesting. I highly recommend requesting for the opinions of other professionals. Absolutely, you can't delay with something like that. You can't. It could be what they call a diverticulitum of coming off your bladder, Sen. It could be that, which is like a small growth. It looks like on a map. It's like a little tributary coming off, and that can happen. It could be kidney stones. It's all those things. I've had all that. It's ghastly, absolutely ghastly. I don't know how you're functioning, Sen, to be honest. Okay, Paul. Back to you.
I mean, this is one of the issues. Prostate cancer is still about 20 years behind breast cancer. The screening methods are still pretty basic. There's a lot of new effective screening methods coming along soon, urine-based or blood-based, which will improve things greatly. But at the moment, it's a PSA test, blood test, which is not highly accurate, and a digital rectal examination, shall we say, which is a finger probe to check the hardness of the prostate. Not exactly rocket science.
Well, that's been the same thing like forever, isn't it?
Sorry?
That examination has been the same thing forever.
It's it. That's all there is. That's all there's
It's out the arc.
Yeah, there are these units that sit in car parks doing breast screening for ladies and well-being screening. The days they're not working on that, they should be doing men. They should be doing prostate checks.
Are you suggesting that within your
our package? Yes. Once we get past this first stage with the treatment options.
So who's funding your organisation?
It's purely donations. We've been very lucky to have some good donations. We survived COVID, which was an absolute miracle because we are events driven as well. So we have events funds. Couldn't do that in COVID. So we were planning to go live with this in April 2020, but that was shelved. And so we're now right at the point where we're just going live again now.
It's quite extraordinary that, because I've had conversations with urologists at Guy's Hospital, and I don't think that this was discussed. It's
really funny because we're in discussions with Guy's and St Thomas's to install one of the first, if not the first, piece of HIFU equipment.
Excellent. Well,
yeah. But
that's my local place. They're the people who patched me up. So, yeah, love them.
You can talk to 3 urologists all within the same hospital, and they will all have a different cure for that condition. In this case, prostate cancer. You will have someone who is a surgeon, and they believe in their trade, so they'll want to give you surgery to remove the prostate. You talk to the radiotherapist or radiologist, they will think the same way. Their treatment is best. You'll go for radiotherapy. At the moment, there are very few urologists around the country who are knowledgeable enough about focal therapies to be sat there alongside these guys and say you have another choice. And this is what the all-party parliamentary group is about. It's that further.
Do you come up with people, so I can understand why they would be, such passionate advocates of their discipline and their treatment? It could be sort of unconscious bias, if you like. They could be so, let's say a surgeon could be so pro-surgery that they might not even want you to know about the other option because they're so almost defending their ground. Do you come up against that a lot?
Neil, you've hit the nail on the head. That's
sad.
And I have that myself. I went into 2 meetings with a surgeon and the radiotherapist, and they both told me, in fact, not only did they say my choice of treatment, focal therapy, was flaky, they actually told me how bad the other person's treatment was. So you don't want to have surgery because, and you don't want to have radiotherapy because, and that's absolute fact.
Well, that sounds like warring political factions. There shouldn't be that.
Let's have a look at this. Have a look at this comment here, which is coming up on the Espresso Bar, which is a group that I run.
In my humble opinion, the NHS self-protection of their archaic approaches is their biggest weakness. They appear to operate in a vacuum that is not connected to the real world. That is not about the people on the front line, but the system management.
Absolutely,
Maybe.
It's the management that you struggle with. Yeah.
Well, they were bloody good to me on They were bloody good to me on Thursday night, so I'm not going to stand here knocking the NHS.
When I've had encountered with the NHS, I've always dealt with the frontline people, and
the frontline people
in the same way when I've dealt with the police on the front line.
They're just completely
absolutely marvelous.
They're overwhelmed.
It's the fat belly of the management, if you like.
Yeah. The thing about this conversation, Paul, is that it's incredibly important, but it's not sexy. And there are certain charities and certain things that people don't want to talk about because it's not sexy. And this is one of them, but it is so hugely important, which is why I wanted you on the program. Now I'm going to read you a message from a guy called Sen Monroe. And this is really not good, but this is an important message. As much as I dislike the finger thing, in other words, having a digital rectal examination, that's just to be grown up about this, for Christ's sake. All my tests are normal, PSA bloods, all normal. This isn't right, so I worry as sometimes chunks of congealed blood passes through me, and yet they can't find anything. I have the camera inserted in my penis is the word you're looking for, Sen. Bloody painful. Yeah, it's absolutely horrific. They say all appears okay, and yet I'm peeing blood even now. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a thing, but
No.
there is a urologist. Send if you speak to me after the show. You've got my number. I've got a urologist who's the head man at Guy's Hospital, and I would suggest go and speak to him if such a thing is possible. I don't know. What people don't want to talk about this is because there's no upside to this. And prostate problems, which people make a lot of fun of. I mean, there's a wonderful line in that brilliant comedy series, The Kaminsky Method, where Michael Douglas says, "Yeah, I'm peeing Morse code." I mean, everything about it is infuriating, embarrassing, and debilitating, which is why guys don't talk about it. It has no plus side whatsoever. And the problems with the I'm going to say the cures or the treatments is that one, there is a chance, as Paul Sayer has said, that you could be incontinent, which don't mean you're living in the south of France, I mean you're incontinent, and also that you can be impotent. And so as much as you might be willing, and the heart is there and the mind is there, trust me, this is what could happen. And so all the prospects are not great. But then, of course, it will save your life. So it's very important what Paul is saying. That's why I wanted him on the show. And if there is an alternative treatment, which Paul seems to be living embodiment of it, well, we're all for it, right? We're all for it.
And we need to know about these things. I think all fields evolve, but the people in those fields sometimes don't want it to for whatever reason, and I can understand why. But equally, for the greater good, things do have to evolve. And if there's less invasive treatments and less costly treatments, I can't think of any good reason why that wouldn't be rolled out. I can't think of one. And the fact that a charity has to do it, I find incredulous.
That's bloody stupid. It's just ridiculous. It really is. It's ridiculous. So,
can I add something, guys, to the...
Please.
When we're looking at radiotherapy and surgery, we're not here saying they're bad, because if you've got a grade of cancer that's higher than intermediate, they are your treatments, and the guys who deliver them are absolute geniuses, and it is your cure. That's what you're looking at. What we're looking at is the lower third, if you like, the middle third maybe. Put it into figures, there's 500,000 men at least in the next 10 years who will get prostate cancer. And about a third of those will present with intermediate grade prostate cancer. It's highly treatable. It means the tumour is still within the prostate. It's not close to the capsule. It's treated.
And the most important thing...
I was doing a bit of research before you came on. 12,000 men will be over-treated. And this is what you mean, isn't it? So if they didn't know they had this choice, and because they only had the limited choice, it was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, maybe.
It is, but bear in mind, don't delay with this, because it can kill you.
Okay.
It's not something you can put off. You know, if you start peeing blood, you go to a doctor ASAP. It's not something that, about 10 years ago, I had this and I just fainted. I wouldn't stop working. Look at me now. And, I just kind of fainted clean away. And eventually, they solved what it was, which wasn't prostate, it was something else. But, don't delay. Yeah, and it's scary and it's horrible. And, but these people, they are the experts and they do know what they're doing. And it's all too easy to be very critical of the NHS. But as Paul has said, it's an enormous super tanker that takes 5, 10, 15 miles to turn around. Because the bureaucracy is enormous, the cost is enormous, everything about it is huge,
I'll never forget, Paul, I went to visit the Royal Marsden and their Chelsea branch, and they showed me this incredible new machine. You've probably heard of it, called CyberKnife or Accuray, same thing. Yeah, and for those, I'll describe it because we've got people listening as well as watching, but it's basically like a gooseneck. And it can pivot to any angle. It can move and it can go under you, over you. When you breathe, it moves with you. It selects the right head. It's like radiotherapy on steroids.
It is, yeah. Far more accurate. Yeah, that's there's a further treatment coming along soon, which is called nanoknife.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
so
and what point I'm getting to was it was sitting in a room unused.
oh
And I went,
God.
oh, that's Accuray. And she's, well, how do you know that? And it's because a bloke down the pub told me, and that's true, because he actually works putting in the lead walling for it. So it is actually true. I was told by a bloke down the pub.
So
but
it's just
they couldn't
it's
use
sitting
this
there
incredible
unused.
machine just because of cost.
Yeah, and this
Because
is
what?
one of
The
the things
cost?
we're concerned with. We're trying to raise £500,000 multiple times to put this into NHS hospitals. One of our big criteria is we have to have a surgeon in there who wants to use it, because we're not putting £500,000 worth of kit in to sit in a corner. So,
Well, no, quite right.
And funny, I've guys.
So do you start to get surgeons to be your champions, and then you raise the money? Because otherwise, is that what you
the
do?
surgeons are in place. We have them. There's an organisation set up by Professor Ahmed at Imperial College in London, who's one of the top urologists, called Focal Therapy UK. And under Focal Therapy UK, he's brought together lots of the most forward-thinking and top urology consultants. Lots of them are professors and high-end. We presented to them just recently. These guys are ready, waiting, and mostly trained to do this. They've got the skill set, but they're bashing their heads against the brick wall with an NHS to get them to say, here's the kit, get on with it, do this. Cut the queues. You can do 5 a day. It cuts queues.
They can do 5 a day.
Up to 5 a day. Yes,
because it is time critical. You know, it is time critical because you don't want it growing, and that's the thing. You just don't. Dave Sleet, who runs a company called ANA, the psychotherapeutic community, has written this. Is up in Fife in Scotland at the moment, recovery. I've long advocated that awareness of lifelong health in general should be included in education sector. Young people being made of lifelong health is vital at diffusing the fear. The whole of the education system is a nonsense. There's so much of it which is an utter waste of time. I've never used tangents. My point is this: I've never used tangents, sines, cosines, logarithms, triangles in my adult life ever since I took maths O level. Absolute nonsense. You know, whereas life skills, which people don't have, you can't teach common sense, but you can teach some life skills, are not taught, and they're essential to be a proper grown-up in a society which is to have any sort of chance.
I agree. And I think also, and this is not a criticism of the people and the workers within the NHS at all, and please, I need to say that clear up front, but the whole model seems to be treating symptoms rather than, it seems to be fighting illness rather than teaching people to be healthy in the first place. And that would come up. You could better call it the National Sickness Management System Service rather than the National Health
very good.
Service. Yeah, and again, I think I know NHS people and they're heroes. It's not them. I'm directing that.
It's not them at all. They're doing the best that they can, and they're flooded. Aizen Brown in New York State says this: I've worked with several men who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer and related issues. I've also had family who have been affected by it. It often affects our perception of our manhood. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, Ace. You're absolutely right. Yes. Do not delay asking for help for the prostate issue and the comorbid mental health. I don't know what that means.
Comorbid, it means another condition equally as bad.
Oh, Christ. Well, yes, you would, because suddenly, you know, everything's great, everything in the garden's rosy, and then suddenly your sexual function can be careful with that wording, can be completely removed.
And that would and does affect mental health, no question.
And that is like a very big deal. Let's not kid ourselves.
But, you know, if you remove the organ that contains so much, has so much impact on your sexual function, it's going to have an impact. You know, regardless of what the urologist will say or surgeon will say about we can take the prostate out and we can maintain your sexual function. It's a struggle. You know, some men are very lucky and they do actually manage to maintain some, but you're taking away the organ that produces seminal fluid for a start. So that's a little bit difficult to have a full sex life without that element. And really all we're trying to do, we're not trying to say that those modalities are wrong. There are better. Men need to know. And this thing about the youngsters in school, this is considered an old man's disease in many cases, and it's not. It's getting younger and younger. Yeah, men in their 40s and 50s are coming to us now with issues.
Why is that?
We don't know. I'm trying to find out this myself. There's a 2%, I was pointed out to this morning, every year, the average age is going up by 2%, so it's getting younger by 2% every year. So that's I really would need to find out the reasoning for that, but that's a fact that needs to be considered. And also, the other thing is, don't wait for symptoms. When you've got symptoms, you're usually in the more advanced stages of prostate cancer. Go and get checked.
So what should you do?
Well, the first thing you've got to do is battle your GP, because A, you can't get to see them most times now to get a...
Paul, let me run this by you. All right. This is where I do despair with the NHS. I was not feeling well for a period of time with ridiculous exhaustion. And so I finally managed to tell the doctor. I didn't see them. It was all done on the phone and email. Well, not even emails, text, right? God forbid you see anybody. And I was sent off for a huge battery of blood tests at Guy's Hospital. So I picked up my letter. You know, you have to get a letter to go to the hospital. And I did that, and I had all the blood tests, and they were very efficient there, as they always are. And they said, we'll have the tests back to your GP within like 4 or 5 days, something like 5 working days. I said, great. I get a text from the GP. Oh, we've got your blood tests back, and I want an appointment with you, a telephone appointment, something good. 3 weeks. Are you actually telling me that a GP does not have time for a 3-minute telephone conversation for 3 whole weeks? I have no idea what the results.
Oh, you got away
of those
lightly.
blood
It
tests
took
are.
my mum a year to get a diagnosis.
Yeah, but what is this shit? How can this possibly be right? He's not even saying you can't come in and see me. They're saying, I can't phone you, and here's a telephone appointment, and it's in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah.
So I have to work on the assumption that the blood tests are okay. All right. But supposing they're not. Well, if they're not, we'll sue. It's as simple as that.
Well, just so
we'll make
happens
a
I got
case
a telephone
about it.
appointment come through this morning. 6th of September.
What's that? Oh, my God.
6th of September for a telephone appointment.
A telephone appointment.
Yes, for a follow-up telephone appointment.
Paul, tell me
6th of
something.
September.
The COVID, how much of an excuse, and I'm sorry, I'm using my words fairly carefully, how much of an excuse has people used COVID for just shutting down?
It's still an excuse, certainly at GP level. I myself was trying to get an appointment for a chest infection just recently, and I've just given up on it. It's a telephone appointment for a chest infection. I wanted someone to actually put a stethoscope on me and listen.
You can't do this by phone. This is bullshit.
No.
This is the new paradigm, which is bullshit. We can sort everything out by phone. No, chest infection. You've got to listen to your chest, for Christ's sake. I'm sorry to get passionate about it, but I do feel passionate about it.
This is an important issue. The hospitals, Imperial College, I can quote an example. That's where I was treated, and Professor Ahmed's a patron of the charity. During the COVID period, he was trying to point out that focal therapy was the most COVID-friendly way to treat someone with prostate cancer. The surgical wings are closed down, the radiotherapy wings are closed down. His surgical suite is fairly self-contained within the hospital. So they can bring people in, they stay, treat them, catheter in, home. So it was one of the most COVID-friendly ways of doing this, but he was still battling that task of getting people through the system, getting them past the GP, getting them to him to see them. So there's such a bottleneck and such a blockage in the system.
It is a blockage, and the other thing, because this is a station which focuses on mental health and well-being, which of course you are absolutely in the centre of this, which is why I'm so pleased you're here today, is that God forbid you got mental health issues. Good luck. Good luck now, because it's all over the place.
The
I had a
psychological
friend
impact,
after you booked.
so the psychological impact of prostate cancer is quite immense as well. I mean, you actually end up sometimes touching on that side of the system, because if you lose your sexual function, relationships can be affected. It's you're pulled towards that side of the system, the mental health system, just as a side effect of that.
Absolutely. Dave Sleet up in Scotland saying, I was advised by a very well-known athlete when I was in my teens to have an MOT for my body for my 40th. It was the best advice I was given on the health point. Yeah.
I've got a producer working in the background for me, listening in. Morning, Ken. And I don't know what you think about this, Paul. He says prostate cancer now the most commonly diagnosed cancer in the UK, according to research. Worryingly, many have attributed a type of plastic which could increase a person's risk. Bisphenol A or BPA are common building block in resins and some types of plastic. Is it a lifestyle thing that it's all going up?
I don't know. There's a lot of research going on at the moment to try and find out how much.
And in food packaging, I'm told as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of research on this at the moment to try and find out what impact these extraneous elements have on prostate cancer and many other conditions as well. But there's nothing that I'm aware of yet that proves that link. But the research needs to go on.
But if you think about it, there's so many new chemicals, drain unblockers, this and that, being released into the market. It's an unknown quantity, and then they're being disposed of, and it's going to get in the ecosystem.
Yep.
We're not separate from the environment, and of course that's going to have an effect. It's got to be something to do with that.
It's got to have impact somewhere, hasn't it?
Of course it does. If they can find little plastic pellets in obscure, almost human untouched rivers in the north of wherever, the last place they should be, it's a real wake-up call, isn't it?
Well, look at your recycle bin. You'll see how much plastic there is in there.
Right.
Well, I don't understand why we have so much. When I lived in America, there was an organization called Stu Leonard. Stu Leonard was like a supermarket, and they came up. They were one of the most successful supermarkets of all time. And the Stu Leonard way of doing things was fascinating. So, say you wanted strawberries, say you wanted blueberries, right? You'd have a huge mound of them. No plastic, none. Strawberries, a mound of them.
Yep.
Everything was in huge, great, beautiful mounds. It looked sensational. What they found, of course, was that people would take far more than they would have if it was packaged. I was guilty of that because it looked so tempting and wonderful. It goes into a paper bag. And I'm talking back in the 70s when I lived there, in the 70s and 80s. Right, and this was up in Connecticut and New York State as well. So Asa Don Brown, I'm sure will know Stu Leonard, and you didn't have any plastic. Everything went into a brown paper bag, and you took it home. The end. The end. I don't understand. And everyone I've spoken to, and I'm not a great tree hugger. I'm not. But everyone I've spoken to said, "Yeah, I don't need all this stupid packaging crap.
They still
shove it in a bag. I take it home."
Yeah, they still do it in New York. I think Marks and Spencer's do it as well.
Do they?
Yes.
Because you just weigh it out. What you do is you'd have like a little
weigh it
tray,
out,
like
put it in a
pick
brown
and mix,
bag.
and you shove it in the bag.
And you can either put your own sticker on, or they can do it at the till. Simple thing, and it just saves all the plastic.
Why does a cucumber or a bunch of bananas need plastic around it? Cucumber's got a.
I don't understand. I don't understand it. No. I truly don't understand it. Here we go. This is an update. Let's get back to why you're here, Paul Sayer. This is an update coming in. Well, it's all important stuff, isn't it? Saying this. I have just phoned my GP for my MRI results. They don't know the results yet. Jesus Christ. So I asked to see the doctor. Can't see me for 4 weeks. Unacceptable. I've asked to speak with the GP. Can't arrange a phone call for about 4 days. Been asked to call 111. I might have pegged it by then. Sends making light, but it's not funny. It's not funny at all. I don't understand. What the hell? This is a nonsense.
It is.
This is a nonsense.
111 won't have his MRI results.
What? Right. So walk us through. So this guy's been told to call 111, which would make me faint, and then you go through a whole load of questions which are absolutely unrelated to your illness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. Sorry, I don't get this at all. This is unacceptable.
They'll either send him back to his GP or tell him to go to A&E. That's their choices.
Yeah, and A&E, I can tell you, I got there at on Thursday. I was taken there, and we got there at about 11, and I got home at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think that's how long these things take. It ain't quick, but it was packed. I don't know what's the matter with everybody.
And they're going because they can't see a GP.
But why can't they see a GP? What? I don't understand. What has actually happened that they can't see a GP? I just don't understand. Why is everything ground? here is this man, Sen Monroe. He's peeing blood, which is an absolute danger sign. It's, you know, he's not got a cold. He's got a splinter in his finger. This is important stuff. And what pisses me off, Paul Sayer, is this, that we were all told, save the NHS, save the NHS. I think it's time the NHS saved us. That's their job.
The bigger laugh to that is when they're now coming out and saying your NHS is open. It's waiting for you. That's the latest message.
It's not. That's bullshit. It's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's simply not. You know, I'm just going to put this up again. This is an absolute prime example. Now, I'm reading it again for everybody on Deluxe Radio, 60, 70,000 of you, right? So I've just phoned my GP for my MRI results. They don't know the results yet. Why? So I asked to see the doctor. Can't see me for 4 weeks. How can that possibly be? I asked to speak with the GP. Can't arrange a phone call for about 4 days. Been asked to call 111. And what's the recourse? What's the recourse? Something happens, God forbid, to this man. What's the recourse? The family sue? You're going to take on the NHS? Good luck with that.
Exactly.
It's an unacceptable situation.
It is, but it's one we're fighting.
The reason is, Paul, that I get upset is we're not being explained why.
That is the question.
Now, I know one of the things I won't accept is people say, well, there's health tourists. There are health tourists, people who know bloody well they're pregnant and arrive from Christ knows where, and suddenly have babies. Yeah, it's a tiny percentage. It's to the cost of the NHS. It's a tiny. It's infuriating. They should be thrown out. Don't care. Sorry, don't get me started on that, health tourist. But it's a tiny, tiny percentage. It's really not having much of an impact. It sounds a great headline for the Daily Mail, but it's not in the great scheme of things. It's really pretty small.
So it's not enough for the 4-week queue.
No, of course.
Yeah. I've got an even bigger why for you, gentlemen. Why is it that we are at the leading edge of technology? We know more in every ology, every discipline than we did before, and yet more people are ill than ever. What's going on?
COVID's a big part of that. People haven't presented with illnesses. Talking to some of the urologists we deal with in hospitals, they're saying that people, if they'd seen them at the beginning of COVID, been able to see them at the beginning of COVID, they would have been given normal treatments, ours or one of the normal treatments. They're now looking at palliative care. That 2 years has made that much damage, done that much damage in the way.
I know someone that lost their mum because everything ground to a halt with COVID. Her cancer treatment was stopped, and it's just unbelievably unfair.
I found that disgraceful, and we spoke about that so much. You can't say, oh, well,
she's processing her grief to this day.
Got to put a hold on your cancer treatment. These things are time critical.
They are, absolutely. Prostate cancer.
So this poor sod, this chap, Sen Monroe, I just read his thing out twice. And this is where it comes into the mental state.
I've read this one.
Would you mind?
I'm even more distraught, says Sen, as tomorrow marks the anniversary of my mum's passing from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm sorry. It's just, this is the kind of thing that I've been processing with my very close friend that lost her mum, because I lost my mum as well, so we were helping each other an awful lot. There's been a lot of processing going on in the room that you see me in. Trust me, an awful lot.
Well,
but there's a lot of it about Sen. I'm sending you the best thoughts. I'm so sorry to hear that.
But that doesn't appear anywhere else. But it's the mental anguish that all of these delays and these things which are not explained to us. Stop. I'm going to read Dave's seat in a minute. Stop treating us like idiots. Stop treating us like we're a bunch of sheep. Stop treating us like we're muppets. Just talk to us so we can have an understanding of why there are such delays. And then we can be, it's not a question of us being sympathetic. It's like, otherwise it just comes across as absolute arrogance. If you came on as a guest, right, you were booked for, just after 12, boom, you came on at 12. If we'd have had some reason and at 5 to 1, I finally bring you on, you'd be right to be really annoyed and angry. If I said, I'm terribly sorry, X, Y, and Z, and gave you a proper explanation and said, come back tomorrow or something, that would ameliorate the situation. I'm giving a stupid example, but when you don't give any information to people get upset. They assume, I don't know, what are you doing? Sitting there playing Wordle? Well, of course you're not. But what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm sure they're doing something at that time, but they need to tell us.
But what are they doing, Paul? What are they doing? Why can't they make a phone call?
No one can get an answer. I mean, as you say, I just wish a representative for GPs and consultants would come on and say, this is what we're doing day to day. This is why we can't get to you. And as you say, you can understand, plan around that.
People in general are fairly, there's a load of idiots out there, but people in general are fairly understanding. If you say, I'm terribly sorry, X, Y, Z, you go, okay, you've explained it to me. I understand. But you fob people off. And of course, you've got no alternative. Where are you going to go? Dave Sleet says, could you read this, please, Neil? That'd be great.
Dave Sleet says, what is most shocking that in the UK military hospital in Basra, served a population the size of Birmingham with full service operations. Guess what? 0 waiting list for 4 years of operations. No appointments in advance of general practice service. Right.
I don't understand the last sentence. No appointments in advance for what? You just wander in? Is that what you're saying?
If I'm understanding it right, yeah.
Don't explain that. Explain your last sentence to us. Don't get it. Well, there you go. Well, it was the same thing when they built the Nightingale Hospital up the road from me at what was the Excel Centre, which could take 3,000 patients. The most they ever had was 43.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want something done. Ask
they
the
didn't
army.
have the ventilators. The problem was they didn't have the ventilator. It was more complicated than that, but it looked ridiculous. So it was a wonderful PR exercise to build this thing in 3.5 minutes, and then it couldn't function. Yes, Chrissy, I've broken my hand. That's right.
In the middle of COVID, the hospitals couldn't spare doctors to man it, so that was the other problem. Where we can suddenly generate, 200-300 doctors from to run it.
Well, this is the thing. Absolutely right.
What do you do for your own mental health and self-care? Since we're talking about mental health, do you have a self-care practice? What keeps you in a good space? I'm
just optimistic, I guess. That's what got me through the prostate cancer. Rather than just caving into it, I thought, no, there must be a better way through this. So I set about finding it. It's just that positive attitude of trying to think, right, there must be a better way to do A, B, C.
Yeah.
And setting about doing it. Maybe I'm not bright enough to have those issues. I'm just...
No. That is interesting. What a very British attitude. Maybe I'm not bright enough. Of course you're bloody bright enough. You started this charity and you're moving mountains. It's such a British
I would
thing,
say that's fairly bright.
Americans would never say that. The Americans with their can-do attitude, they would never cross their mind to say it. It's such a British thing to say that. You're exemplary, Paul. You're the typical British stoic. I'm just going to get things done in my quiet British way. That's great. I wish there were millions. I wish there were a million more Paul Sayers lurking around. We'd have a better,
1 or 2 here to help.
We'd have a better nation. We'd have a better nation. So here we go. Paul, Dave Sleet's answering the question exactly. Arrive in need, triage on arrival, treatment by appropriate professional. No one was permitted to insist on a doctor-only response. Interesting. This is back in the military hospital in Basra.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, Dave Sleet, that is for all sorts of medical. I'm not assuming someone's coming in, with a bullet wound. And they're not going to say, "Oh, call 111." I don't. I can't. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
You've been shot by an insurgent. And
give it 4 weeks and call 111.
I'll phone you. I can't see you for 4 weeks. Well, I have a telephone conversation. I'll have a look at the bullet wound through the phone. Crap.
How do you do a prostate examination through a phone? It's just physically impossible.
Well, of course it is. And where's the fun? You've got to get your jollies somehow. Just kidding.
It doesn't look very well in a team meeting.
It's look, the whole thing about it, everything to do with prostate, it's unpleasant, it's embarrassing, it goes to the very heart in some ways of being a male, I'm going to be honest with you. It's horribly bloody inconvenient, it's painful and it's scary. But if we don't talk about it, we don't have people like Paul Sayer on, then what's the point of having a radio station? Even though we have 50% of our audience are women, which is wonderful all over the world, this goes to the heart of it. It's important. You're going to have these conversations. They're not sexy, but you got to have them.
Very encouragingly, since we set the charity up, we never set ourselves up to be a helpline, let's say, but we get an incredible number of calls from men who've had a new diagnosis, who've seen bits in the press or visited our website, and they will now come to us. And I'm surprised at how many will now open up when they talk to me. Some of the conversations I have, we're going to find a corner to have them because they're not everyday conversations.
Well, you can't have these. You don't want to have the conversations because they're embarrassing. They're horrible. I mean,
although I agree with you, Paul. As I said at the beginning of the broadcast, I did an event for the Grace Deer Trust on Saturday, and normally to get people to open up and talk about mental health is the most difficult thing. You'd have a better chance of people discussing their financial lives or sex lives openly than talking about mental health seriously. But not at this event. There were people just standing in queues, waiting for things, opening. Yeah, me too. Yeah, that happened to someone I know. Yeah, me too. And it was so refreshing to see people feel they've got the space just to be able to be honest. Because you're right, Russ. It does have to be talked about. Because shame hides in the dark. Right?
But Neil, so did Muggers. So does the Shadow. So does Batman. Actually, I'm thinking it. They all hide.
Well, yes.
They all hide in the dark. I think we ought to be quite clear about your list of things that hide in the dark. One of the worst aspects of mental health, and Neil and I talk about this a lot, and Paul, you're right in the center of this really, is this. You always think you're on your own. You think it's just you. You think no one else on the planet could possibly be feeling this. And the fact of the matter is that hundreds of thousands of people are feeling exactly the same.
But the nature of any mental health condition, it makes you feel
you feel very, very isolated. You feel very isolated, and you think it's just me, and I'm a freak, or this is all me, and it's not. And once you realize that it's not just you, and you can talk to other people and have open conversations, it's almost like a huge relief. And I would say, the phrase, I'm trying to use my words carefully, like, I'm not going mad. Sen, I'm not going to read that out. It's a little bit graphic, but I totally get that point. Sen is saying, I'm not going to read it out and put it up on screen, only because it's rather graphic. And, because he's got blood loss, he's having to take steps because otherwise it's very difficult to lead a normal life. It's, I just don't understand, Sam, why they can't find out what it is.
Yeah, all the best
it can only be a number. It can only be a certain number of things. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
We're going back to people talking about it. What I've found, during COVID, we've managed to get about 60 guys from all over the country into Imperial College in London and some to UCLH, where these two focal therapy units are. So we've sort of kept ourselves busy, if you like, during that time by finding people and bringing them in. As they've gone back out into the community, they'll phone me back to update me. They said, it's incredible. Since I've had my treatment, the number of people are coming up to me now and talking to me about it. It's a subject I would never even have considered before that, but I'm having...
Because they're apostles. They're apostles. I want to have plenty of time to do this. Sorry, hang on a second, Neil, if you don't mind. How do people get hold of you, Paul?
The website is the best route, and that's Prostate with an 8, so PROS.
No, you see, this is the problem. I would normally type it out. I just can't because I'm left out. It's going to take me forever. It's going to be an embarrassment. So carry on and just spell it out. So sorry. PROST, so across the beginning, and the number 8, so prostate.org.uk. And all information is on there.
Also, Paul, I've put my my website address in the chat. I do quite a lot of fundraising over lockdown. I was doing online fundraisers, and I'll be delighted to do one for you. It's
that'd be absolutely superb.
I won't sell it to you on here, but contact me privately. We can have a talk about it.
No, sell it to them on here. I want to know the cost. I want to know what percentage is coming back to MRS. What is the agency fee? I want to know what.
Well, you'll have to talk to my agent, Russ. I'm sorry, I got to be a bit brutal about this.
Well,
All right, I haven't got an
Pat Sharp's busy. I can't talk to him now. He's busy celebrating Monica's birthday yesterday. Bless him.
Oh, yes.
They have Pat and Monica. Not only are they gorgeous people, they're lovely people, and their kids were beautiful. But they have the most beautiful. I don't really go on about other people's kids. Why would you? I've never seen such beautiful grandchildren in my life, ever in my life. Pat Sharp's grandchildren. Gorgeous.
I'm still a fan of Pat Sharp to this day.
He's a lovely man. He's just a lovely, lovely man. You're going to get a message, Paul Sayer. I can only apologize in advance from Sen Monroe, because this guy is being. When you're pushed from pillar to post and you feel ill, it's a horrible feeling. It's a feeling that makes you feel desperate.
I literally had a text from a friend. I know we were going to talk about this on the show one day, Russ, and I hope we can. And it's a friend of mine that is addicted through no fault of his own to legal drugs. And he's been pushed
like opioids. Opioids.
Pardon?
Do you mean opioids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He shouldn't have been put on in the first place. And literally just 5 minutes ago, I got a text. It's turning me and saying, I can't think straight. It worries me what I could do. And this is one of my dearest friends. And he's been pushed from pillar to post to pillar to post. And it's taken me. I know someone who works in the nursing profession. So I'm literally having dinner with her on Thursday to talk options and advocate for him. It's literally come to that. And I don't mind doing it, but it shouldn't be me that's doing that.
Well, one of the things, there's a saying that I believe that is, when America sneezes, Britain catches a cold. So far, we have avoided the opioid crisis. Thank God. Well, thank whoever you want to thank. Legislation rather than God, probably. But in America, you have no idea how bad it is horrific.
Fentanyl. It's awful.
It's
awful
horrific.
Stuff.
And we do not want that crap over here. It was bad enough having, I remember when somebody said to me, the legal system would change in the UK and it'll be no win, no fee. I said, this is Britain. That'll never happen. Was I ever wrong? Was I ever wrong? That, this nonsense with all these scam artists, because they got nothing to lose, and all these dodgy lawyers. No, we don't want that. We don't want that opioid crisis. So I feel for your friend now. Right. One more time with your website, please, Mr. Paul Sayer.
Sure.
One more time.
www.prostate, so PROST, the number 8.org.uk. And if anybody's got a recent or a new diagnosis for prostate cancer, they need to go and have a look to just see what their choices are. It's when these men start getting in front of their consultant and say, what about this treatment? So we'll start to see some traction.
And also, Paul, you feel very vulnerable. You're in a hospital that makes you feel about an inch tall anyway. Hospital's a scary place. They scare the crap out of me. I mean, really, you're reduced to an idiot. And then suddenly you're sitting with a consultant that clearly they know a million times more than you do. And they're saying, this is what you're going to do. And you go, okay. Because you're reduced to a gibbering wreck as opposed to any other aspect of your life. And you go, well, hang on a minute. I don't think so. Let's just look at this, that, and the other. You don't feel like that because you're at your lowest ebb when you're in a hospital feeling ill and you're scared.
Yeah, it's a learning curve at a time when you least need it. It's like grief. It's a learning curve.
Paul Sayer, you've been a breath of fresh air.
Good luck with everything, Paul.
Yes, absolutely everything.
Keep in touch, yeah?
I would love to
anything we can do here, please do stay in touch. You know how to reach out through your team. And they can always give you my email directly.
You guys have got a great platform, so I'd like to make use of it. I must admit, we can get this message.
Do. That's why we're here, fella. That's why we're
here. And keep in touch with me about the fundraiser as well. That's on a different platform.
I'll do that. Yes, I'll be in touch.
He's rubbish, but he's cheap.
Oi!
He's the cheapest in his class.
I won a Mayor's Award during COVID. I'll have you know, Mr.
That's
Kane.
MARE from the local stables. Paul Sayer, thank you very much. Bye, Paul. Take care. I can only say this because you're a pal.
How very dare you, Russ?
You're a very generous guy. Right, we're out of time. I'm sorry I haven't been 100% gang. Doing my best. Neil, thank you for doing the heavy lifting today. Much appreciated.
Always a pleasure. I'll see you Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon. Until then, try and stay out of trouble. Bye, gang.